Okay, up next we have Dr. Lee and Jake Sinclair. The Sinclairs are founders of No Means No Worldwide and Ujamaa, and today they're speaking about their Kenyan prevention program, Impact on Rape and Teen Pregnancy. So come on up. Please welcome them.
I really love that clip. It's all about empowerment, and that's the key to our program. Because many of the girls that come to our schools to learn empowerment defense, they can't speak above a whisper. So I'm kind of like saying, okay, let's start there. Let's start with where you are. Let's get loud. Let's make it fun to get loud. Let's harness that energy that you see in there. Let's give it language and content. Let's get into your rights. Learn to say no, speak up, tell them to put on a condom. Voice is the vital behavior that unlocks a dozen others. And once we get that going, the news is really good. And you don't hear that much in the rape prevention field. My name is Lee Sinclair, and I founded No Means No Worldwide in 2004. I'm going to give a little bit of history about the program, and I'm going to do some demonstrations with Marianne, and then Jake and Clea are going to come up and they're going to do the research piece on the impact of this program. So again, I founded the program in 2004. I was in a slum called Korogocho in Nairobi, and it's one of the most violent slums in Kenya. And I was walking down the road yeah, that's the road. And I was visiting microloan businesses that my husband and some of these investors had started. And we were just going to check in and see how the women were doing. So I'm walking down, kind of hanging back a little bit and talking to this woman who's my translator. So as we're walking along, this little girl comes out. She's about this big. And my translator says, "Oh, you see that little girl? She's a rape survivor. She was raped by her father." And walking a little bit further, and this girl comes walking out. She says, "Oh, you see that girl? She's a rape survivor. She's HIV positive." Walking a little bit more, within 25-minute span, we walked by a house where she said, "Oh, that's the house where a 7-month-old baby was raped 2 weeks ago. Oh, and that's where we found the body of a grandmother. She had been raped and murdered." The grandmothers are particularly targeted around here. There's a lot of shosho, that means grandmother. There's a lot of grandmother rapes. And by that time, I was just so overwhelmed. It's enough I had been working upcountry Kenya. Now I was starting to work in the city, in the slums. And this was pretty new to me. So it was really, really intense. And by the end of that walk, I knew that I was never going to be able to go home to the life that I had. I knew that I was going to do something about these stories that I had heard. I wasn't sure what yet. So fast forward 10 years later, and we've developed the Empower system of training. I'm just going to move this for a second. The Empower system of training, and the good news is that it's working remarkably well, and the research crew is going to talk about that impact. So here's what we do. We have about 100 instructors, 50 male and 50 female. We have offices in 6 slums around Nairobi. The instructors pair up, or they get into groups, and they head out into the schools 5 days a week. Each class is 2 hours long, and we go for 6 weeks for a total of 12 hours in classes. That's kind of what it looks like. We return at 6 and 10 months to do refreshers. We teach about 45,000 students a year, and we could teach 100,000, but we are a skills-based program, and that limits our class size. Without that skills training, we could stand up and present to any number of students, but we keep the class size lean and mean. About 16 students per teacher is our ideal. This was a difficult but conscious decision to do quality training over quantity. We don't lecture, we don't do presentations up in front of the entire school, we don't choose a topic and ask students to talk about it week after week. We identify vital behaviors. These are high leverage behaviors that influence dozens of others. We dial those in and teach skills to actualize them. Our skills toolbox is the best of the best. It took 5 years to create Empower, and I was in a perfect position to do this because of my familiarity with extreme risk environments and my access to the best teachers and strategies that the world has to offer. We build skill upon skill, starting with the assault continuum. We needed to make sure that girls understood what attack is. Some of those situations that you see up there are so normalized and so entrenched in their experience that we need to go over it with girls, name it for what it is, and explain this is a form of assault and it's okay to do something about it. And here's some skills to help you. Right from the get-go, it's all about voice. We go from one end of that scale to the other and we find ways to use voice for everything on that continuum. From irritating, as you can see, all the way up to life-threatening. The continuum also represents our teaching goal. By the time we're done, we want our students to have the skills to respond effectively to anything on that continuum. So we're up. We're doing activities. Again, we start with voice. That means saying no, assertiveness, boundary setting, negotiation, de-escalation, fake compliance, intuition, perpetrator ploys and patterns, feminist foundations, intervention role plays, devastating emergency moves, shout-outs, as you saw in that video. We teach and practice and question and teach and practice and question. And right now I want to bring Marianne up here so that we can show how we start with voice and we keep moving up to more escalating, more violent situations and the skill building aspect of this.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Miriam and I'm a filmmaker from Kenya and I work with No Means No Worldwide. And what I'm going to show you, can you hear me? Okay, so what I'm going to show you are some of these techniques we teach the girls, so I'll move around a bit. And we're going to start with the common one, which is actually naming the behavior. And I'm going to play out a scene which is very common. You're on a bus in Kenya, which most girls will find them in buses, and a man harasses you, and let's say he touches your butt, excuse my language, and will demonstrate with me, and she'll do it, so I'm on the bus. Don't touch my butt! You can hear the point, the voice, you can hear that I actually named the behavior. Because if I went like, stop it, the guy will be like, stop what, stop what? You know, like there's room for denial. But if you name the behavior, the guy will be embarrassed and it calls attention to it. I'm going to ramp it up a bit, and the next move we teach these girls or techniques is making a scene. It can be done anywhere, in the mall, on the street, in the bus, in school, at a party. And you're going to play out the same thing where Lee's going to touch my butt and... Hey everybody, look at this man, he's touching my butt! As you can see, she walks away embarrassed, as many harassers will do it. And this technique actually creates 4 scenarios. One, the first one, which is actually creates consequences for your attacker. 2, it actually models this behavior for other girls who saw you do it, will emulate it and go like, I can do that. 3, it actually calls alert or makes a scene and everybody comes and helps you. And 4, it stops the behavior there and then. Okay, so the last one I'm going to show you is the voice, a basic no. And what you're going to do is, I'll take a scene where I'm walking down the street and I notice someone is following and harassing me. So Lee,
Hey, where are you going?
I don't want to talk to you.
Think you're too good for me?
I don't want to talk to you. Stop following me.
You can't talk to me like
No! I'm sorry, that was loud, but for a guy who was just harassing you and has targeted you and thought, oh, that's naive, she looks small, an easy target, and you use that for in your voice, and you just come out and just shout at him. The guy won't know what to expect. He'll definitely run away. And in other scenes where a guy make physical contact and the guy has grabbed you and he's invaded your space. I'll show you.
So say that in that scenario, the big no wasn't enough, and so now he's grabbed me, and I know his intentions. I'm not guessing anymore. I know this is serious because I don't like anything near my windpipe where I'm breathing. So here he is, he's here. I'm going to forget all about this, and I'm going to focus on what do I still have that's free on me to fight with? Plenty, right? I've got my hands, I've got my fingernails, I've got my fists, right? I've got my elbow, I've got my spirit. I've got my voice, I've got my eyes, I've got my foot. I can stomp and crush the bones, right? Little bones right on his foot. There's so many things that I still have free on me to fight with that this is nothing to me anymore, right? But I'm also really alert to what's open on him. Where is he open that I can mix and match these moves? There's plenty open on him. He's not expecting this. So we have the element of surprise. I have tons of things. I can even do a headbutt. I've got my voice. No! Right? So let's try another one where we're up front. This is a very effective one. It's called high-low. And this is if he's coming at me from the front, and I just, no! Now, I've opened up this area. So what's open here that I can strike? So I'll say, no! Okay, now I went high, low. Now I'm going to go high again. No! And then I'm out of there. But I've made sure that I don't have to fight him again. That's why I'm doing devastating moves, because he's already shown me he's willing to go pretty far with his violence, right? So I'm not sticking around to fight. I just want to get out of there.
And just go home and be safe.
That's your safety goal. Thank you, Miriam. So that's just a little bit of the escalation, always working with voice and moving on up until, force, if that's necessary. We still have the skills to do that. At first, we focused only on women, but in 2012, we started our program for boys. We have a new research study coming out of 1,500 boys that shows the impact of our classes in the lives of boys, and it's beyond anything that I ever thought possible. Here you will see the intervention continuum. Looks a lot like the assault continuum. I could go on and on about that. Each behavior on here represents a skill that must be learned by the boys before they leave class. Boys love this. Many, many boys have survivor shame for living in environments where they're exposed to unbelievable brutality and attacks for many, many years, and they've never felt that they could do anything about it. And their instinct is to help, to protect, to defend. We dial right into that once again with vital behaviors. And when you know what to do, when you have options to help, the world isn't as scary and as chaotic as it once was for these boys. They learn how to speak up, ask for help, disagree, defend themselves or someone else, or even have an opinion and voice it. But here's the thing. Right now, the big GBV rape prevention buzz is all about the men. It's all about the boys. Put the focus on men. They're the primary prevention. Vaccinate them. Leave the women out of it. Let them be. Study men. Fund the men. Does that sound familiar? Here at the WSDM forum? We have a social ill, rape, and a proposition to cure it from one side only, the perpetrator side. Has that worked in the past 10 years? Not where I work. I've been at the rallies and campaigns by Amnesty International, UN Women, USAID, and it hasn't made a dent in the incidence of rape. Our research shows that girls' empowerment defense can cut the incidence of rape in half consistently. Our research shows, Why defund this piece and throw the money at men? Women hold up half the sky. That's not just true in economics. It's true in the GBV prevention world also. Prevention works most effectively when girls and boys are taught at the same time in parallel classes, dual gender education. Because by the time men get it, By the time they've all formed new neural pathways that support consistent gender-positive behavior, millions of women and girls will have been raped, as they have been for the past 20 years, as we put signs up on light poles, hold awareness campaigns, and rallies. It is women and children that pay the price for this reluctance to support them in this really basic way. They aren't asking for much here. 12 hours of empowerment defense training that lasts a lifetime. We've filmed over 1,000 testimonials of our students telling how they were attacked and how they prevailed. Our research says over 25,000 of our boys and girls have prevailed in an assault situation in the last 2 years alone. These girls multiply our impact by teaching their mothers and sisters and friends. That's an excellent, even sacred return on our investment in them. We have an opportunity here, while sexual assault is in the news, to turn the tide on the global rape epidemic. If we treat this with the same intensity that we do polio and malaria, we can end rape in our lifetime. It can be done, and we can be the generation that does it. I'm going to have the research team come on up. These are some of the testimonials that I just mentioned.
There kuna kuanga na watu mingi,
alikuwa Shadi alikuwa amenialika basi tele, alikuwa ameniambia tunaenda kwa mama ni hapa na mashaka tukaenda, alikuwa anasikia lakini kwa mashaka kanisa sasa nimesikia nilikuwa mchiti yake kwa sababu mimi napenda sana kushinda na machali.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the research. I've had the privilege with a fairly large and multidisciplinary team here at Stanford to actually apply some very rigorous methods to this intervention to show the actual impact in these communities. And Bonnie Maldonado and Mike Bianchi and some other folks in the audience have been involved in that effort as well. The first study that we did on the girls' intervention, and there are studies on the boys' intervention that will be discussed later, was in one slum in the Nairobi region, about 400 girls in the intervention group and 100 in the control group, and the annual incidence in that group was 25%. So 25% of these girls aged 13 to 20 were experiencing rape annually every year. You can see that after the intervention, that decreased to about 9%. There was no significant change in the control group. That's obviously a highly significant finding. That was published in the Journal of Adolescent Medicine in May of last year. And then we did a much larger study. So we showed it in one setting, and can we do this in other slums in the region? 1,561 girls, 300 in the control group, a little bit lower annual incidence, 18%, and that decreased to about 11%. Again, a very highly significant decrease in rape. And we just published this recently in Pediatrics. So these are undergoing peer review. They're solid findings. Perpetrators of assault, Paul mentioned earlier that in conflict settings, it's still mostly people the girls know. We're seeing that as well. It's boyfriends, relatives, neighbors primarily. This is true in the US as well. So some other really interesting things that came out of this. One is that over 50% of the girls in this study specifically said they used the skills they learned in this intervention to stop an assault situation. Another 50% of those used only verbal skills to get out of these situations. I don't have this as a bullet point, but we also saw a very large, significant increase in the rate of disclosure of rapes, which is what leads into being able to access all other services and decreases stigma and that sort of thing. So that was a really important finding we didn't highlight here. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about how cost-effective this is. It's a very cheap intervention versus just the very initial exam and labs and aftercare are quite expensive. So I am going to hand it over to Jake now to talk a little bit about the boys study. One other thing, just methodologically, all this data was collected using the ballot box method, which we think is very important. It's a highly anonymous way where girls mark a ballot and then put it into a ballot box type of thing to get the results. And that has shown to have much better results than more face-to-face interviews on these highly stigmatized topics. Jake?
So as Lee said, we studied the boys too. And we wanted to see if we could change these negative attitudes and and also to see if we could increase bystander intervention. We have a curriculum called the Moment of Truth, your moment of truth. So there are ordinary moments, and then there are moments of truth. And in a moment of truth, you're being tested. So there's something at risk and something at stake. You have to have courage. So we try to help these boys to find the courage, and then we teach them skills so that they can successfully intervene. Negotiation, de-escalation, distraction, calling for help, even organizing a bystander intervention. So we're really helping them to both respect and protect the girls in their lives. So you can see here we did a big study. It's going to be published in a few months with 1,250 boys in the intervention group. There are almost 300 boys in the control group, and we surveyed them at baseline and then post-class at 6 months and 10.5 months. We don't have time to go over all these questions, but you can see that there's some very negative gender stereotypes in the beginning. When a woman says no, she really means maybe. Specific questions. If a woman dresses in a sexy dress, these are really high percentages. Or if a man takes a woman out on an expensive date, he has a right to have sex, 60%. So what's really remarkable here is this is a decrease by 75%, and it's very durable. It's easy to show a change in knowledge and attitude after one of these courses, right after the course. But to see it hold up for that period of time is really amazing. This slide just shows that you didn't really see much of a difference in the control group. Again, really specific questions. After a woman's agreed to have sex, she has a right to change her mind, even after the man has an erection. You could see that initially it was only 30% in the intervention group, and then it doubled, no change in the controls, which is held true for all of them. But this is really the big slide here. It's very difficult to show a change in behavior. The University of New Hampshire has shown an increase in bystander intervention. We're not aware of any other studies. So in the year following the intervention, 50% of the boys witnessed a girl being verbally harassed, 35% physically threatened, and 35% of them saw girls who were being actually physically or sexually assaulted. But what's really impressive is 75% of them successfully intervened to stop it. That's amazing. The control group, it was 1/3 of that. So in summary, boys' attitudes can be changed, and even the bystander intervention can be increased dramatically with a very low-cost intervention. So you can see that it's the same kind of a shout-out, awakening in them, really the positive side, as Lee said. So future directions for this is we just have completed a dual-track intervention in 2013. Again, this one was outside of the slums, so the initial incidence of rape was maybe closer to India at 11%. Cut the incidence in half. And remarkably also decreased the boyfriend and friend rape, the perpetrator percentage by 24%. And another associate, Lee described these vital behaviors. So this empowerment awakens a vital behavior in girls and boys. Here's an associated finding. It unlocks all these other, the incidence of pregnancy-related school dropouts dropped by 50%. So we're doing a large-scale randomized control trial of 12,800 kids. Should finish up in, will finish up in 6 months. And we want to test biological markers. Our main message here today is that prevention is the key. Everybody's out there doing aftercare. It's incredibly expensive. We do aftercare too. We're like the primary go-to people in the slums where we work, but it's so expensive. Really, if you just take 10% of the money that's being spent on aftercare and these rallies and campaigns and direct it at primary prevention, we will stop the global rape epidemic. That's what this research shows. Thank you very much.